Okay, I'm going to recap part one. What I basically said there was that if you're lacking in inspiration, there's a way to connect back to it. And one of the ways I've found is to connect with an interest that you previously have had. That's your way into the energy of inspiration. A good example in my own case, I had an interest a long time ago in photography. Having had a film background, it was a natural thing for me to get more involved in. And since I've reconnected with that interest in photography, I also found that I had a passion for filming architecture, for filming buildings, and this has now led me into a new phase of my own creativity, and that's making films for people who want their houses in video form. So that's something I've really found quite surprising and something I'm really enjoying. And it's unlocked, in a way, another level of my own creativity. And of course, the way in which I fired myself up with that interest was to study directors and cinematographers, the great cinematographers who have been able to film buildings. And of course, that now is kind of a lifelong passion for me. So, number one, knowing that you have lost your connection with creativity, it's because you're simply not inspired. And to get back the inspiration that you've lost, find something that you were interested in a long time ago, reconnect with that, then find a professional person who is doing that with a high degree of skill. If you can get with that person, study with that person, it's even better. That's the most amazing thing. Then you can be right there with them, studying the way in which they create. That's a wonderful opportunity if you can ever get that. I've had that a few times in my life, and I've just been so thankful that these people that I've been working with have been my teachers. So I want to move now into, let's say, my take on the metaphysics of this, because as I said before in part one, that creativity is in a way a mystery. It's not something that can be explained away. But I've looked at this for a long time now, and if you can kind of break it down into its components, you can kind of see how this loop kind of connects from inspiration to manifestation, because there are many sort of stages in this that if they're not kind of carried out, you don't actually produce anything. There's no result. So there's highly creative people, and perhaps you're one, you're actually not creating anything. So the act of creating is really, I think, the most important thing to learn. So you may have seen me at the very beginning of the film. I sort of done a little bit of photography of this beautiful summer house that I'm now staying in Denmark, and I was writing something on one of the windows. And this is the way I'm going to introduce you to the idea that inspiration as an energy, as a dynamic urge within the cosmos, is stepped down. So it's just a figure of speech. It's stepped down to its eventual manifestation as a physical reality in your world. So that's the next thing I want to have a look at. Okay, it's up here on the window. Okay, so written on the window, you're going to see some words here. I'll take you through them step by step. Let me just go back to the idea that I'm trying to formulate here. This idea that the creative intelligence of the universe is manifesting through us by stepping itself down. Again, it's just a figure of speech. So, inspiration is the number one. That's number 7. It's the state of being in spirit, the state of being connected with that intelligence that is behind all of evolution. Now, the idea behind that is to do two things. First of all, it's like your TV. You're going to plug your TV in and you have to turn it on. So one, you have to plug yourself into that inspirational energy, and number 2, you have to turn yourself onto it. So we've talked about ways in which to do that. So inspiration really is a state that you really have to aspire to get into. Then you can begin in the creative process. And it begins, I think, from what I've sort of looked at and the way I've studied this, it looks a bit like this. The next level down, if you like, the next way it's stepped down is intuition. Inner tuition, inner learning is free if you can tune into it. The idea that you're trying to get, the idea that you want, is really at that point trying to come into your consciousness. This is where you kind of get that gut feeling about some direction in your life, some sense of being on purpose. It's a compass bearing, it feels right. You get this at the most odd times, but intuitively you feel that this is the next creative thing for you. And providing you're inspired, you will be intuitive. Now, intuition really is just an impulse. It's often non-verbal, and it needs, in a way, it's the spirit of intelligence or creativity beginning to, let's say, begin the process of verbalization. But it kind of starts in your gut. It's a feeling in your gut. So once you tune into that, the next level that this energy, this dynamic urge to create will stimulate will be your imagination. And that's the next one down. Inspiration, intuition, and imagination. Imagine, well, think of the word there, image. You begin now to form an image. It's very much a right hemisphere brain activity where you let your imagination run wild. What can this idea be? Is it this? Is it that? You get very imaginative, maybe you do some brainstorming, but you get really on fire with the idea of creating with no limits at all. So at that point, it's beginning to come into your imagination. It's really where you begin in your artistic mind to form a blueprint. And it's interesting I use the word blueprint because an idea comes out of the blue intuitively. Well, that's the figure of speech that we use. It comes out of the blue, literally a blueprint. So once you've got that, then it's really connecting with the next level of this. It's really the contemplation. Where I feel, again, words are so important with this and so revealing as to what the process is. Contemplation, con meaning with, temple, the temple, which is really your heart. It's really connecting then this higher level of energy with the heart's intelligence. Now, this is really important. Within the temple of the heart, here you receive another kind of energetic boost to your creativity that comes from the heart. It's a passionate embrace of spirit. It gives you the courage to act on your intuition, because many of us have intuitions, but we don't act on them. And sometimes you've got to be brave to act on your intuitive instincts. So there we go, from inspiration to intuition to imagination to contemplation. The next one, a little hard to read perhaps, but it's determination. Write these down, determination. This is really more of a left brain activity, formulating a plan. Once you've got the imagination fleshed out, it's a matter of stepping it down from the right brain into the left hemisphere, where you're downloading the idea into a logical, linear plan that you can follow. This is really important that you have a plan at this point. Because if you don't, it will stay in that imaginative realm, and you've got to take the energy and bring it down, using that figure of speech, bring it down into the next level, which is determined by a plan. You've formulated a plan. The next, if you can read that, is realization. This is really acting on the plan. This is the perspiration from the inspiration. You've got to have a plan, then it's a matter of working it. Then it's really a matter of just doing what you have to do to bring this idea down, to follow your plan, to marshal all your forces, all your powers of intent to follow this thing through. And at that point then, the last word, you can read the bottom there of the screen, is manifestation, because if you do the work, you'll manifest something. Maybe you'll tweak it around, maybe you'll fine tune it, maybe you'll change it, but the fact is you've created something which originally was just inspiration. And this really is not really a linear thing. Every single step and stage of this actually feeds back into other parts of it. So it's kind of a non-linear loop, if you like. But as a way of, I've become to understand it better, is to sort of break this down into these 7 different steps. In fact, they're like really sort of one state of being, which is inspiration. Then, of course, the manifestation is the result. So there are really 5 steps to connect with your intuition, to connect with your imagination, to contemplate inside your heart, to get the energy boost of intent and courage, to determine an action plan, and then to follow that action plan and to realize that as a manifest object or artifact or service or whatever it is that you want to bring into the world.